Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm Skippy. Welcome to another video. Underpowered. Like a bit of vibration there, which didn't help. Then didn't seem to have enough power. I didn't want to overcook it, and then it clipped the wing. And as I'd expect with those very small, non-sturdy cabanes and struts, didn't hold up too well. Okay, so how do we make the SE5 better? Well, the first and probably the easiest thing is to try and shift the centre of gravity forwards. And to do that, I'm thinking move the battery forwards, which means I need to make the battery hatch bigger. And looking at here, I can probably take it to this former. The reason I can't take it any further forwards is the motor is actually mounted here, and then with the shaft through to the prop there. So I'll look at cutting with the saw through, then sticking this onto the original battery hatch. It doesn't matter if I have a little bit extra here. What I might be able to do then is shift the receiver further forwards as well, shifting that way. The servos are fixed, they're pretty much, or they're integral to the fuselage now, so I can't move those. But I can move the receiver forwards once I make the hatch bigger. That will hopefully also then make putting the battery in a lot easier. After that, I need to consider how I make the struts stronger. And if I look at the top wing, it's probably easier. What I'm thinking is creating a frame that slots in there, and then the struts are glued to the frame. It'll probably make more sense if I do a drawing. I'll have a look at that in a bit. I'll do that on both sides. And then I don't really think I need to worry too much about the cabane struts. I just need to glue them in, and they should go the right way. The advantage of also doing the frame is I'll have the correct angle, because I don't think the wing was necessarily in the right place in the stagger position, but we'll see. At the rear, as I said, I think in my original video, I'll upset the paintwork, but I'm going to cut holes in the tail, recover it, and then repaint it. And as a result, while I'm doing it, I'll be able to make it easier to put in the rigging wires later as well. The good thing about the incident was there was no massive structural damage. It's purely the top wing joining the bottom and the motor. The challenge I think I'm going to have is taking the prop off and attaching to the motor, but I'll go ahead and do that first. As I feared, I think I accidentally glued that shaft onto the motor, which is no good, so I can't undo it whilst it's fitted. I've managed to cut the extra hatch out, and as you can see, those are the screws that I attach the motor to. But I think to be able to remove it, I'm going to have to cut a bigger hole out here, so probably around the edge, undo the screws, take the motor out and do it that way. Losing weight at the front isn't a big deal, and I can always brace it up like it's got there. With all the glue that I used, I'm struggling to cut this thin bolter out, so what I'm using is a drill to drill the holes so that I can then have a smaller space to cut through. It started to work, as you can see. Just thought I'd show you now before I finish it. Okay, the motor's out. I managed to get the nylon extension off, but this collar is properly glued on, so I'm not going to be able to do that. So what I'm going to try and do is fit it back into the fuselage with a new nylon extension, put a different prop on it and see how it rotates. But having taken the lid off now, I can see with a bit of tidying up in there and a little bit of repair there, I can probably shift the battery almost an inch further forward, which is bound to make a difference. I will also then look at moving the receiver suitably forward also, but not such that I can't get the battery in easily, because that was one of the difficult parts with where the battery is. I'll then probably just leave this hatch. I might end up having two hatches, one that comes on off regularly for the battery and one here just so that it leaves access for the receiver. But again, I'll play that by ear as I go. First thing to do there is put the motor back in, wire it all up and see how she spins. Right, I've had to order another motor because no matter what I do, I don't seem to be able to stop the blade from vibrating or this. It's not the prop not being balanced, it just vibrates. So I think this shaft is probably not on straight. So I've ordered a new motor, which hopefully will be longer. So will actually fit through this hole, and I won't need, well, I definitely won't need this collar. So in the meantime, what I've done, made a bit of weight loss at the back. Looks pretty horrendous. I've cut out some holes try to keep them as matching as possible, so that weight distribution on either side. And that's the amount of bolster I've cut out on paper. What I'll do is I'll then recover this and obviously repaint it when I do the rest of the model. It may make a difference, it may not, but at least I've shed. Okay, a verbal update on where we're at. I'll show the photos of how I got to where I am. As you can see, got the new motor mounted, and as I expected, it does stick out further, which is great. When the prop adapter's on, it does actually fit perfectly with the plastic cowling, so that's really good news. The only issue I've got with it is it's got 3.5mm bullets, and the ESC is 2mm, so hopefully I've got an adapter coming which will convert that down so I don't have to cut any wires and do any soldering. And hopefully this motor will work nicely. Having put the prop on and just give it a quick manual spin, it seems really good, but only time will tell when I put power on it. Okay, so what's different? Obviously I've made the battery hatch. That's now the extended version, which is great. I tried using the original piece that I cut out. It didn't work, so I've made 2 new top formers. Literally I just put flat bolts up against the butt there, drew around it, cut it out, and then cut in the notches, and then stuck in the additional bolster, so that's worked out really well. I then carved out a little bit of the space here just so that the battery fits in a bit more neatly. When I mounted the motor, as you can see there, I had to cut an additional hole because this motor mounts to the right with the wires, so put the wires coming out that way. I've started covering the tissue where the holes were. So obviously I did the battery hatch, done both sides, and I've done the tail. Still looks horrendous, but obviously once I painted it, you won't even see that, so that'll be good. I've drilled holes in the wing points where the crimps are going to go so that I can do the rigging again. And I think, as I said in the video previously, actually drilling the holes before you've put the wings on is a lot easier, because you can put the holes for the crimps exactly where you want them. The tail will just re-thread through the existing holes. To try and make the struts, wing struts, better, I've actually dremeled out the slots, made them bigger for the wood. I had to create a new K2 because I obviously left one on the field. So again, I've got a couple of pictures there. I'll show those as we're talking. So that was basically from sheet balsa and then carved to shape. What you'll notice this time with the struts, I've joined them together with wire. I'll show you the pictures. This I'm hoping will give it a bit more strength. I've dropped one of these several times because I've been butterfingers and it's not broken apart, so the glue is holding the wire in there, so hopefully that'll give the wing some rigidity. And also the advantage of that is I've now got the proper angle for the struts. I think when I did it before, because I did it by eye, they were slightly too far forwards, so the top wing wasn't in the right position. Now it will be. So the plan is I'll glue those in, put the top wing on, and then fit in the cabane struts afterwards like I did last time. With the top wing, again, I've just drilled the holes for the crimps, and I've dremeled out the slots for the struts that they fit in neater. What I do need to do, and I haven't done it yet, is just put a bit of tissue over these holes, tidy it up a little bit more, and then cut the slots for the struts and cabanes. So that's an update. I'll show the pictures as I've been going along, hopefully. Oh, and what I have done while I'm thinking about it is refitted the undercarriage, and this time I've done it hopefully a lot stronger. very similar to how I did it before, but what I've used, and again I've got pictures to show, I've used little pins that I've pushed through the wood into the main frame, so that's holding it on extra strength, and you can't see them, which is nice. So they've glued it and then pinned it, so I'm hoping that those pins will hold it in more securely, and the wheels still spin, which is nice. And what I might do this time, now that I've got the wing off, I might actually try and put the rigging wires in between, so going diagonally across, now that I've got a better idea of how I do that. I had to redo one of the ailerons. Annoyingly though, it's not as level as I'd like, but it should work. So I was very fortunate with the damage that happened. Need to just tidy that bit up there. So yeah, it all seems to be going together well. The test will be how that motor works, and then whether the prop has any vibration. Hopefully not. Another advantage of this motor, it's obviously bigger, so it's heavier, so that'll add a bit more nose weight, and I'm hoping with the wing in the correct position, when I balance it or trim it, it should be easier to trim. So I may not move the receiver, which I talked about earlier. Haven't quite decided yet. But yeah, there we go. So it's getting there. I now need to dope up the tissue to tighten it up before, don't know what I did there, before I then paint it. But I'm not going to paint it probably until I've done the maiden flight with it. I want to make sure it flies before I spend more time on it. Right, spot the difference from the last video clip. Yep, I've actually jumped ahead and built the S.E.5A up. I showed you how I made the struts. Those went in much neater, glued in nice and sturdy on both sides. Glued in the cabane struts, and this time I'm pretty sure it's much better because those forward cabane struts are much more vertical, whereas they didn't have the right angle on before, and the rear cabane struts line up with the struts of the wing. So I'm happy that I've got the spacing or the stagger correct, which is great. What I've done with the exhaust, I've attached the top of the exhaust onto the battery hatch. So if I can do it one-handed, try it the other way. Comes off like that. There we go. And I've glued the actual exhaust pipes itself to the fuselage, so that's different to what I did before. Makes it neater. Inside I've got the adapter for the ESC bullets. They've worked nicely. I've run it up. Motor spins freely. There is no vibration with this prop. Yes, it's a garish orange, but once I've had the first Maiden, I will look at changing the colour or perhaps trying out a black prop. Rigging wires, did them the same as last time. I did pre-drill the holes, though I had to do a couple again because of course I covered them over with some tissue when I was sorting it out. Managed to get the rigging done on the undercarriage this time. Paint wise, I didn't like having the white tissue, so I've hand painted it. It's not the neatest. If it all flies nicely, I'll spray it to tidy it all up, and I'll also put those rear rigging wires on that were on originally but aren't on at the moment. And everything else seems to be good to go. So all being well, that's the rebuild of the S.E.5A. A new motor, better prop. When I just run it up earlier, it feels like it's got a lot of power, even at 50%. So all being well, we won't have that issue. I haven't trimmed it or check weighed it yet. I'll do that. I'm just letting the cowling glue and set because I've had to obviously glue that back on. And because the motor comes slightly further forward, it was rubbing on the inside, so I've had to pull the cowling slightly further forward and glue it. So we'll see how that goes. But once that's done, I will see how the centre of gravity is, and hopefully it'll be much better than it was before. So there we go, a successful rebuild of the S.E.5A. Hopefully you find that useful as well. We will then wait and see how she performs on the Maiden, which hopefully this time we'll get airborne and do a couple of circuits. Thanks for watching.